Congressman Troy Balderson, and we are doing our weekly podcast. We kicked it off last week with former Congressman Zach Space, and we talked about bipartisanship and how important that is and the examples that can be set by members of Congress. Today, a little bit different. We're going to go with Seth Ellington. Seth is a small business owner in Licking County, resides in Licking County, but I wanted Seth to come because he's young. He's one of the up-and-comers in business world. He is branching out into other parts of Central Ohio, and I think that's important. And we're going to kind of share his thoughts of what's going on and how he's dealt with some of the issues that are going on currently now with COVID, but also how he got started. So, Seth, you want to kick it off and just thank you very much for being here and just talk a little bit about your company and how you got started.
Well, thank you for having me. This is really neat. I appreciate the opportunity to tell my story and tell how you've helped me and you've helped our organization, to be honest with you. In 2012, I took a leap of faith and started an organization with, quite frankly, 41 residential clients. I'm in the waste disposal business, waste hauling business. We had 41 residential clients that we picked up in about 2 hours on a Tuesday, and we had the rest of the week to figure out what the heck we're going to do with. And we've grown the business substantially. So back in 1976, my grandfather actually and my uncle started in the waste business. My grandfather unfortunately passed away in December of 1984. I was born in July of 84, so I was just a 6-month-old pup when he passed away, so I never really got to meet him. But my mom said that she had always that we had always had a connection. So to this day, she still says I'm a chip off definitely his block. So when he passed away, the company went to my uncle, and then actually talking about regulation, a Subtitle deregulation with landfills back in 1985 took place, and it was really an expensive venture for a lot of independent operators like my uncle at the time after my grandfather had passed to take on. So my uncle ended up selling the company, then ran it, another part, a hauling organization for 6 years, and then sold that part to another hauling company. So they were completely out. In 2012, the company was called Wasteway. So in 2012, I took the name kind of as a tribute to my grandfather. We started from the ground up, but we started definitely with him looking down on me for sure. So we had 41 clients. We worked hard. We got lucky. We had a lot of people, a lot of fans. And today we're in multi-counties, and we have several different lines of service. We've got a transfer station. A transfer station is where people can bring material to us. We've got an industrial division that we service several manufacturers and industrial organizations. We've got a commercial division that we do a lot of commercial dumpster pickups, and then, of course, still a residential division where we originally started. We also ventured into the liquid waste division, so we do everything from a simple portable restroom to septic tanks to industrial water removal and pumping. So we're kind of broad-based and kind of cover a lot of different areas. And then we just recently migrated to Muskingum County.
It's good to see those trash cans lined up along Dresden Road.
I like it.
I know you do. I like it a lot too. So it's fun to say that I know him and the diversity that you've taken on and branching out by watching you and you and I have mutual friends, and obviously that's been a big help in our relationship.
Sure.
And really funny story. So here in the western portion of Licking County and part of New Albany and those communities working together, we have been able to land Facebook and Google as part of the 12th Congressional District also. So I feel very fortunate and blessed to have that opportunity
Absolutely.
to serve them. But we were going for the big
I am
grand
too.
opening. Yeah, you are too. We were going to the grand opening, and I pulled into the parking lot. Sure enough, I come up on the Seth's big containers called Waste Away, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's incredible. So I pick up my cell phone and I call Seth and I said, man, awesome, you're in the Google facility and you've got that job, and I'm sure it's a big job. And I said, I see 9 containers here. And you said, well, there better be 14 there, Troy. And I said, well, let's not get into that. I'm not going to start counting, but I think it's really important when it was my time to speak and thank and talk about Google and the community for doing the work there. I touched on those things. I touched on the importance of small business from the local communities, the contractors, the plumbers, the electricians, these big companies that do come in to our communities branch out and try to support the local businesses. And I think that's important. And I don't know what your relationship was leading up to that with Google, or if you'd ever done work with them.
Well, this is a really good story. So I'm in my office one Sunday that, small business entrepreneurs oftentimes are, and you being an entrepreneur yourself, you know my sentiments there. So I'm in the office on a Sunday, and it's 2:00, and I can't remember what I was doing there, but the phone rings, and hey, it might be $1 million call. It might be might also be an upset client. Regardless, I phone rings, I answer it. So I answer the phone call, and it's this guy that wants a quote on a portable restroom. He wants one quote. He won't tell me where it's going. He won't tell me how long it's for. He's like, "Look, man, I just need a quote for a restroom." And then that conversation, I felt it was kind of weird, so I followed up with that conversation or that phone call about 5 days later, and I said, "Hey, just following up on the one quote for one restroom that you won't tell me where it's going or how long you need it for." And then that turned into a conversation that we had that turned into where we are today with that organization. So talk about a wild phone call to answer at 2:00 on a Sunday is pretty sweet. But hey, look, that's small business, and for them to come in and oftentimes have the faith in a small business to be able to perform the jobs. Not only do we have the dumpsters there for the construction, but we also do all of their portable restrooms, and we do all of their industrial pumping, and we do all of their containment pumping. They're an extremely environmentally conscious company, and we're partnering with them to ensure that everything that's in containments has been properly remediated. So, I am forever I'm forever happy that A, I answered that call, but B, that they took the leap of faith. But to echo your sentiments, the larger companies, guys like me are always asked to sponsor T-ball teams and Little League field fences and dance programs. And it's really neat to see those big guys come in and support our companies and support what we do.
And I think that's important. That's a great thing that you bring up. When Google sees that you all are doing that, or these larger corporations see you doing that, I think that encourages them to say, look, they give back to the community.
We do it because it's right. It's right for us to do for the community. The community supports us, and it's right for us to turn back to the community and support them and support those organizations. I mean, we support as much as we humanly possibly can, whether it be something that an employee has a special touch on, or if I took a phone call this morning, there's a homeless outreach going on in Zanesville where they're trying to get people to certain spots for help, and they needed some help with some services that we could offer. So it's neat to get those phone calls, and I got to tell you, I love to take them because it's the right thing to do.
They're very important. So let's talk about 2020 and what's been going on. I mean, it's definitely been one of the most unbelievable years that we have ever experienced. And in February of 2020, the stock market was at 28,000 points. Mm-hmm. Unemployment was the lowest in 50 years. It was actually hard, as we talked about in our Small Business Advisory Committee, hard to find people, good employees to come work for us, and those challenges that happened. 1 month later, COVID virus, it has completely done a 360. We went from the lowest unemployment in a stock market of where it was to the highest unemployment since the Great Depression. And kind of tell us how it was for you transitioning through that period to where you are in business today, and explain a little bit about, most of your business was an essential business, but talk about some of those challenges.
Yeah, well, look, the Lord giveth and the Lord can taketh, and the Lord was giving and the Lord taketh.
Yeah.
In 1 month time. And as a small business owner, you have no idea. There's a lot of sleepless nights because of the uncertainty. Look, you can draw a direct correlation to the amount of disposals. Weird as this sounds, to the amount of disposal that's collected at the street corner from individuals' homes, because that tells you how much disposable income people have. You can tell a direct correlation from manufacturers and what the production level is by their waste that they are producing or the recyclable goods that they're producing because of how much demand that their product has. So the waste business is a really good litmus test of the economy. And then all of a sudden you shut the economy off. whether it's a worry of people not having jobs and not being able to afford utilities, whether it's manufacturers not in production. We've got an investment that's made up front that we don't assume that manufacturer, that industry, or that commercial location is going to shut down next month. We're full bore. And in fact, we were in the middle of ramp up for spring. Our spring season is when the boys become men. It's the major leagues in our business because of the amount of disposable that is picked up because everybody's coming out of hibernation. Well, that was the exact opposite this year. So we're in the process of ramping up. We're in the process of adding crew. We're in the process of adding containers and adding trucks. And then, wham, the rug gets pulled out from underneath us. So that was a scary, scary time. Going back to February, we had our best winter ever. Our slowest month is normally January, February, March, and February, January, March in that order. And we had a record-setting 3 months, a record-setting December, January, and February. We had a record-setting first 3 weeks in March, and then literally just the water spigot fell off or it got shut off, and It's like, well, what do we do? We've got a crystal ball that we can't see anything in. We can't see anything out. It's not giving us, the 8-ball's not even giving us an answer right now. You're shaking the hell out of it, and it's still not coming up. So it's like, how do we prepare for the future? We don't want to carry these individuals or the people that we just brought on board ready for spring and then not have any work. And it was a scary time. Mm-hmm. It really was. It was an uncertain time, and that was the scariest part. It was the uncertainty of the entire situation of what in the world, what's next, and how are we going to mitigate our losses, or how are we going to have an influx of waste because of people being home. So it was scary.
And you bring up that key word, the uncertainty. I'm communicating on a daily basis with small business owners, mid-range businesses, manufacturers. We can't guarantee certainty. We know that. But what we have to do is prepare ourselves for what we can do best. Did your company become involved with the PPP? Did you look into any of those things? And
let me tell you, Troy, that the first phone call that I made after the governor shut the state of Ohio down was to my bank. Because obviously a small business, you've got loans. So that was my number one phone call. I think my second phone call was probably to your office, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I'm not going to lie, saying, hey, look, we've heard about these things that are coming down the pipeline for help, but what's the reality? I think we might have even been on an SBA small business meeting phone call. What's the reality? These are going to happen, and what's the landscape going to look like with them happening? And thankfully, your office was extremely responsive. And thankfully, the bank was like, "Hey, just look. Let's just see how this is all going to play out." And I think that was the attitude with everyone, And we didn't lay. Thankfully, look, I've never laid anybody off, and since I've owned my company, I was in management for 5 years prior to that. I never laid anybody off, so I didn't want to ruin that streak because of this. Because if I do that, then that means that individual might be taking care of grandkids or nieces or nephews or whatever the case is, or their own children, or just themselves or their parents. So the last thing I wanted to do was produce more hardship or burden for them. Right. So, it was. I think it was kind of a work quick and wait type deal. We explored the PPP program, and one of the reasons why we explored that was because of, again, the uncertainty. And I got to tell you, the uncertainty is still here because of it might be. We think we've seen the worst. I don't think you or I both know if we've seen the worst, and if we haven't seen it, what's going to happen next. But so we did explore that, and we had success again working with you in your office. It was extremely. It was a program that gave us a little bit of a peace of mind. It wasn't a huge peace of mind for a long term, but we weren't thinking long term then. We were thinking, what do we got to do right now to protect ourselves, and that was honestly probably one of the best comforting pieces that we could kind of have in the back of our minds. And it was really comforting for me to know that, hey, I'm gonna protect people's incomes and their livelihoods, and they're not gonna be on the street, and they're not gonna be trying to sift through the unemployment line, so we can continue as business as normal, whatever that was going to look like at the time, to be quite honest with you. So through a partnership with your office and the bank, we were able to navigate those waters relatively seamlessly. And in fact, it was kind of refreshing.
Look, 75% of the employees in this state are from small businesses. And you brought up something, Seth, that I think is really, really important. And that's, it's not your end goal to lay somebody off. Small business people, that makes us have sleepless nights too.
And let me add to that though, Troy. Keep in mind, we were an essential business during all this.
Yeah.
We think we had a pandemic going on because of COVID. Well, don't pick up the trash for 2 weeks, and then let's look at the pandemic that we have going on.
Exactly.
So it was really, it was an important function that A, we kept our crew healthy, and B, they wanted to still come to work, and C, they still came to work. They're our heroes, and those guys are vitally important to our economy. We're kind of in the backgrounds, which is nice because we don't want to be kind of seen of the jobs that we're doing, because if we're seen of the jobs we're doing, then we're probably not doing a good job. So we want people to come into a clean community, and so that was another issue that I wanted to ensure that we had our workforce still want to come to work and still feel comfortable working, and that was tough. It really was. Thankfully, kind of the way we have our business set up, it was a little bit easier to mitigate some risks that we had to mitigate. But at the end of the day, those guys are our front line. I mean, they really they did a heck of a job. They really did.
And what you've done here since Ohio has started to open up in phases, do you see or do you hear other business people?
Yeah. Let me give you a perfect example here. So my barber, she's been cutting my hair for 20 years, and you take all income out of a beautician's, male, female, whatever, barber, cosmetician pocket. Well, that's a problem. And the uncertainty of not knowing when they're going to be able to go back to work is a problem. And I know that she had expressed frustration and uncertainty and fear. She's got not a small child, a 16, 17-year-old kid at home. And, it's like, okay, well, just talking to her on the phone, what do we do next? When am I going to be able to go back to work? How am I going to be able to afford keeping my rent paid or my mortgage payment paid or my car payments paid? Because, that line of work, you got to have people there. My heart goes out to her because of the fact that they don't know when they can go back to work, because there was no timeline given. Well, We'll give you an update tomorrow. We'll give you an update next week. And then B, just the uncertainty of trying to climb out of a hole. I mean, you're literally putting people into a hole and then you say, all right, we got to climb out, but we don't know how you're going to climb out, but you got to climb out of the hole.
Seth, let's switch gears a little bit. Sometimes people wonder where we get ideas. We get ideas by listening to folks like you in our district. You yourself had an idea. You brought it to our office. Kind of talk about that and what motivated you. And did you know who you could pick the phone up and
right.
call and talk to about that?
That's a great question. So this is an honest to goodness true story here. So I'm sitting in the Lincoln County Clerk of Court's office, and I've got a title in my hand that I have to pay taxes on, which is fine. Look, I'm not complaining about that, but I'm looking at the bill of sale that I just paid a federal excise tax on. And then I'm paying state tax on. And I'm thinking, wait a minute here. I mean, we're talking, the one downside to our business is one of those trucks is the cost of a small home, not a small home, a nice home. Mm-hmm. And you can imagine the tax rate on that, the federal excise tax rate being 12, 16%. So depending on what it is and what we've got. So, you've looked, and then state tax rate at 7.25%. So you're right. I did not know who to call before you were there. I can't even sit here and lie about that. But I literally.
We wouldn't want you to lie about it.
I didn't. But I can tell you this. I got out of the clerk of court's office and I promise to goodness, I went right to my truck and I pulled my phone out and I called your office. I said, I got an idea. I think for small businesses, instead of having a federal excise tax and a state tax, why don't we get a tax credit for the state tax that we pay to be pitted against the federal excise tax to reduce the amount of overall tax we have to pay on this piece of equipment? Because there's a lot of other guys out there like me and gals that have to pay a federal excise tax on a piece of equipment to make their business run. And as you had said before, you look at a lot of the companies that move dirt, that are trucking, that are in garbage, that are in water well drilling, towing. I mean, you look at all of these things that aren't that are responsible. You have to pay the federal excise tax. It's a lot of things that we depend on as Americans, but it's also a lot of businesses that are small. So this could be a huge help for guys like me to reinvest into our company, to bring more people on board, to buy more material, to hire more folks.
And I mean, it's going to help. It'll help a lot of people, and it's something that our office is working on. We're happy to work on it. We're excited to work on it because it is such a great idea. I mean, there is no better legislation than legislation that comes from someone that has to deal with something on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I think you kind of nailed it, Troy, with the question you asked me of who did I know prior to you becoming or you being in office. And so there's a ton of people out there with great ideas. I wish I could, I wish I could write them all down. That when I'm talking over a couple of beers with somebody, I'd probably need to start, to be honest with you. Then I'll call you and take all the accolades. No, I'm kidding. But I think the gumption of people actually picking up the phone and calling, it shouldn't be intimidating, because I can tell you, it's the least intimidating thing in the world. In fact, if you just kind of take the mindset of, this could not only help me, but it could help every other person in my situation, which there's probably more people out there that could benefit from not only this idea, but another idea from a constituent that I guess from not knowing who to call, from me knowing now who to call, if I could give one piece of advice to anybody that might be listening to this, is if you or somebody that you know has an idea, your office is extremely responsive and non-intimidating whatsoever to at least push it through and see what happens.
I couldn't agree with you more, and we are there.
One more thing, though, that small businesses, it's real. This was really something that was a piece of legislation that was passed. It doesn't really even matter what the legislation is, but it had a direct effect on my business when I was starting, and it had a direct effect on the amount of people I was able to hire, and it had a direct effect of the amount of equipment that I could add to our portfolio and continue our further growth. From a small business guy, it's neat to see actually something that happens in Washington trickle down to affect a guy like me, and allow us to continue to grow our organization and allow us to continue to put people to work.
I'm fortunate enough to sit on the Small Business Committee. The Small Business Committee has been the most active in the last 6 months than I think it has been in over 25 years. And then I'm also the ranking member for the subcommittee on workforce development. Workforce development is something I've been passionate about my whole life. It is so vital for us and you and I as community leaders to make sure that we're reaching out to kids and letting them know the other opportunities that are out there. The vocational schools, the trade schools, the community colleges, they've kind of been put down at the bottom, and everyone, hyper focuses on this 4-year degree thing. And you and I both know that not every person out there is the right fit for a 4-year college. And I think it's important that, we help and we encourage young kids in high school to get to that vocational and learn that trade in carpentry or plumbing. We talk about welding a lot. We talk about truck driving. As we move forward, coming out of this COVID, talk a little bit about workforce development and what are some of the things that you look for when you go to hire somebody.
Well, a couple of things. Number one, we're going to realize that we're short on tradesmen when it's too late. And I think that we've already started to realize the pinch on that. Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, it's kind of tough to put. I appreciate you mentioning your previous experience with this, because it's kind of tough to put cars on the road when they don't work. And if they don't work, you got to have somebody to fix them.
Yep.
And it's kind of tough to pick up garbage when you don't have a mechanic to fix your truck. Or it's kind of tough to pick up garbage when you don't have a truck driver. And you're right. So the development of those critical skills that are absolutely necessary for the American to go about normal life, whether you realize it or not, depending on how you got to work today or depending on how you got your garbage picked up. It depends on those skilled tradesmen, whether it's somebody welding the truck or somebody, quite frankly, one of the toughest positions to fill in my organization is A, a heavy equipment operator that's skilled, and B, a mechanic that's skilled. that development of those individuals and those particular trades is insanely important to put a focus on, so that we don't wait until it's too late.
You and I are advocates for it. There are so many more skilled positions out there that are available. We have apprenticeship programs that are out there. If I call a buddy of mine that has an HVAC company, he said, Troy, I will train them. I will do what I need to do to make sure that I can put them in a position that they will succeed. And again, that kind of goes back to the entrepreneur that's in people. Workforce development includes everybody. We talk about kids and vocational schools, but it includes veterans coming back in from serving our country.
Thanks for bringing that up. On my way over here, we couldn't be talking about any more real life stuff here. I promise you we couldn't. So on my way over here, I had a call from one of our operations managers, and I had just happened to sit on an interview. Our veterans of this organization, or of our country, have a special spot in my heart and in my organization. And I had interviewed with my operations managers, a gentleman that was in the National Guard. And, there was recent legislation that was passed for a CDL driver that was, licensed, I guess, if you will. I don't know what the technical term is for the military credentials for that particular operating a heavy truck. He had said that he's trying to get the state of Ohio to release him for a CDL. So this was a national level for veterans coming back into the workforce to be able to get a license for a commercial vehicle to drive, but yet the state of Ohio is holding this paperwork up and not allowing him to get this completed. Talking about these guys coming back in, which was such a great move to make, because there are so many skilled individuals that are coming back into the civilian workforce, which is a great program. We've got to get the state now to say, okay, this is a great program. Let's move the ball down the road, because that's the only thing that's holding this guy up from a particular job in this particular situation. But that example is as far as the ability for the CDLs to be granted on the civilian side is huge.
Well, Seth, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
Hey,
I
thanks for the
appreciate you
opportunity.
doing this. And
this has been great. Let me thank the men and women that we have on board of Waste Away Systems, which is our garbage collection arm, Waste Away Station, and then Affordable Portables. Thanks to the folks that we have that make it work every day, and thanks for the opportunity here.
Thank you very much.
Hey,
I
thanks for the
appreciate you
opportunity.
doing this. If there's anything that we can ever do, I want you to know that we're here, and look forward to working with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.